conversion metrics are your KPIs, right? Your key performance indicators for a performance marketer. Our goal is to get sales. Sales are conversions in Google Ads. So we have a couple things that we look at here. One is conversions. So this is basically the number of times that you got a sale. Now, Google Ad accounts, because of how complicated the tracking is, I audit stores all the time that have duplicate conversion tracking, reporting the same sale twice, 3 times. I'm not going to go into conversion tracking or how any of that works in this course. I'll make other resources on it because it's such a deep topic and it's very, very confusing. I mean, when I first started doing this, it took me about a year and a half to figure out the right way to do conversion tracking, because every time I learned something, I would take on an account, audit it, learn something new about how to set it up. It was rough. Conversion tracking is very confusing, so I'll make a whole nother resource on that. But basically, what you need to know here is, now it depends on how you define conversions in your Google Ad account. But for e-commerce, it is sales. That's what you're going for. You're trying to get sales. Even when you're trying to get leads or something like that, you're still going to conversion bid because the traffic is just much better quality. So we're always going for conversions. And this is transactions. This is your sales. Cost per conversion. So basically, for the period of time that you're looking at, like I spent almost $300 here and got one sale. So my cost per conversion is like almost $300. But basically how this works is, and they even call it out here, right? If you track multiple conversion actions. So if you're screwing up, this number is going to be a little bit nicer than it probably really is. And that happens all the time. So cost per conversion, this is commonly called your CPA in other platforms, other networks. Generally speaking, on the internet, it's your CPA. Conversion rate. Now, this is interesting because every platform measures conversion rate differently. From what I've seen, I forget how they all work. There's 2 different types of conversion rates. So there's conversion from impression, and then there's conversion from click, and then there's conversion from interactions, which Google Ads measures. Don't worry about interactions, just don't even worry about it. But basically how Google Ads measures conversion rate is by clicks. And now it includes certain views on video ads. Now I'm not going to get into this in the paid search course, but this is really like a shame. I mean, this is just not good for the platform, in my opinion. I haven't seen anything good come from this. I'll make more resources on that another time. Conversion value. This is your revenue from all the sales added up for the period of time you're looking at. So if you had a sale that was worth $35, which I think mine was, then your conversion value is $35 for that whole time period that you're looking at, if there was one sale at $35. Conversion value divided by cost. This is your ROAS. They say return on investment. That's a business intelligence metric. That's not advertising. Advertising, we use ROAS, return on ad spend. It's more of an indicator of ad performance, not business performance. As marketers, we can't really be responsible for the whole business. We're responsible for ad performance. In some cases, we can help with business. But basically, return on ad spend is now the relationship in a ratio of how much did I spend, and that's the cost metric up here in performance, and how much did I get back, right? The idea is, now every account has a different KPI or a different like goal for ROAS, but ROAS is the primary KPI in e-commerce. Like, we spend money, we want to get money back. Some brands can lose money on first time purchases because they'll get repeat customers. Some brands need to be profitable on the front end. Totally depends on the store you're working with, the product you're working with, the store owner you're talking with. Very, very, some brands don't even know what this needs to be. And, a lot of times as the marketer, it kind of is your job to help them understand that. But essentially, there's a big difference between ROI and ROAS. Now, ROAS, again, return on ad spend. So basically, if we spend $1 and get $2 in sales, our ROAS is 2. So you basically divide all the money you've gotten in sales divided by the money you spent. That's your ROAS. Higher is obviously better, but when it comes to scaling, not always. So a lot of this is so subjective. Like I can't even answer the question of what's the best ROAS. What should I get for ROAS? It doesn't work like that. It depends on the context of your situation with that brand. Conversion value divided by click. This is one of my favorite metrics. This is now, so the amount of sales you got and the amount of clicks that happened. So this gives you like a really, really interesting measurement. I'm actually going to define this metric first, and then we'll go back into this. But value per conversion. Now, this is your AOV. This is your average order value. For all the orders that you got, the sales that you got, right, the number of conversions that you got, and the total number of revenue essentially is your average order value, your value per conversion. Now, the reason I wanted to skip this because you're basically your conversion value divided by click is kind of your overlap between these two metrics here, your conversion rate and your value per conversion. And to give you an example, right, like you may be testing prices of products as one of your tests. Maybe you want to test $100 versus $120. Or maybe you're doing a price anchoring strategy where you have a 1, 2-pack and a 3-pack of a product. And you want to see if you can boost your AOV, right? Because theoretically, like if you spend $100, and now your AOV is $150 instead of $120, your ROAS will go up. Now I know that's a little bit confusing without actually seeing some numbers, so we'll do some of that later in the course. But basically, what happens is your conversion value divided by click is basically going to say like, okay, because a lot of times what happens when you run these price tests, so if you increase your price, when you increase the price of your products, your conversion rate usually goes down. When that happens, your conversion value divided by click usually stays pretty consistent, and so does your ROAS. I think this is just an easier metric to look at for a test like that. But if you do it right, like the idea is your conversion rate either stays the same or goes up, and so does your value per conversion, and then you'll see your conversion value divided by click go way up. Same with your ROAS. Your ROAS will go way up. But this is usually just an easier metric to look at for that specific test. So I like all of these. I mean, all of these are very, very important. They'll give you different ways to think about the the tests that you're running. Some of them are more important for others. Like this is my favorite metric to use for tests because it really tells you everything. Did we get more money, or are we just basically now shipping less product? And that could be like you may want a higher conversion rate and a lower AOV, or the opposite, depending on your situation. Right? Maybe you're low on inventory, so you want to try to get the same money with less orders. That's really important stuff to think about. So conversion metrics, I know this is a little bit of a long video, but everything else that you do here in Google Ads is going to be based on this stuff here. This stuff is really, I mean, it's so important. Like they have all these other ways to try to assist you with this, but these are the main ones. Now there's these other metrics here, conversions by time. This will give you insight into like time lag. Then there's all conversions. I'm just not getting into that in this course. Those are more advanced. There's certain times where you use them. There's certain times you won't. A lot of times you're better off using a third-party tool if you're trying to measure time lag anyway. Third-party tool like Northbeam. So really, like a lot of this stuff isn't worth worrying about. Revenue, orders, average cart size, average order value. Like these are like more literal names for the things I just went over, but I don't know why these don't work with Shopify. I just don't know how to use these. They weren't always here. I remember they popped up at some point. I just can't remember when. But when it comes to like the default implementation of conversion tracking, this is the stuff that we use, and it basically means what this stuff is. So your orders, your average order value, all that stuff. So these are the metrics. That's what they mean. If you ever get stuck, you can just hover over them either here or down here, and you can see what they mean. So to look at like data, like my ROAS for this whole time I ran this account for this campaign, pretty shitty, right? A 0.16. I basically spent $300 and got $45 back in one sale. So like this really didn't do well. Now there's a reason for that. There's there's a little bit more to it. Um, we'll go more into that when we talk about bidding and machine learning and stuff like that. The other thing is I basically didn't run any other ads other than Google ads. There was no paid social. There was no brand awareness. Nobody knew who this was, right? It was just some really, really cheesy looking Shopify store um, that I slapped together in like a week or two, you know? So with that, I wasn't really expecting much from this. I kind of just wanted to learn about drop shipping. So mission accomplished. Cost me $300 and some software. I got some data to use for this course, so it's a win-win. But yeah, my return on ad spend was 0.16. So I spent, that's that relationship between those two numbers here. And then when you look at like all these other metrics, like my AOV, like I only had one sale, so my AOV is the revenue. So yeah, I mean it's just kind of nice because there's some numbers here. The conversion rate, right? So this is a 0.39% conversion rate. That's another thing I can't really speak to is like what's a good conversion rate? No good answer. Depends. Now, generally, the higher the price of the product, the lower the conversion rate. Generally, there's always exceptions. Um, think of something like furniture, for example, could cost a couple $1,000 depending on what you're buying. You may be thinking about buying it for months. Those stores are going to have lower conversion rates than a store that sells a $15 lipstick. Your conversion rates will be way higher on something like that. So the idea is like it's not about what's the best conversion rate, it's how do I try to improve it? How do I incrementally improve progress? And these are the metrics that you're going to spend a lot of time looking at that will basically indicate that.